Okay, it's time for story time. Let's talk about Todd and Julie Chrisley. You probably know them from the reality show Chrisley Knows Best. On TV, they came across as a wealthy, tight-knit Southern family living the good life, whatever that means. But off screen, they were involved in a much different story, one that landed them in federal court and eventually prison. Oh my God, why are so many people criminals? Back in 2022, both Todd and Julie were convicted of some serious crimes. We're not just talking about forgetting to pay taxes or making accounting mistakes. This was bank fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and even obstruction of justice. And it wasn't a one-time thing. It went on for years. Many years. So they must have been pretty good at it, at least for a while. It started before their TV fame. Todd was a real estate investor for years, buying and managing properties, which brought him some financial success early on. I don't understand why people who are successful also think they need to steal. But anyway, let's move on. Around 2007, they began lying to banks. They created and submitted fake documents. Things like inflated bank statements and phony audit reports. So basically phony financial statements, all to make it look like they had way more money than they actually did. With those lies, they managed to get over $30 million in loans. $30 million, that's insane. Like, people really, like, these banks didn't check any of this stuff? Then they used that money to fund their lifestyle. Private school tuition, luxury cars, designer wardrobes, big homes. They were living at large. Well, 30 million will do that, but with other people's money. But when the money ran low, they didn't stop. They used new fraudulent loans to pay off the old ones. Like it was a financial shell game. Of course, things like that eventually fall apart, and that's what happened. Eventually, Todd filed for bankruptcy and walked away from more than $20 million in debt, most of it based on lies to begin with. Banks. Here's something worth noting. Before Julie married Todd, she actually worked in a bank. And that background, it may have given her the inside knowledge to know exactly what kind of documents banks looked for and how to make fake ones seem legit. That's probably exactly what happened. That experience likely helped them finesse the system and make their fraud harder to detect. At least for a while, but a long while. Jesus, these people. Now, once they hit it big on TV and started earning real money, you'd think they'd clean things up. But they didn't. Instead, they used a corporate entity to receive their income, which is pretty standard in the entertainment industry. But then they used that setup to hide money from the IRS. When are people going to learn? Eventually, you're going to get caught. You can't spend money and not report money. The IRS catches on to that. Hello? Todd owed over $500,000 in back taxes. But rather than pay it, they kept the bank accounts tied to their media company in Julie's name to keep the IRS off the scent. I'm not really sure how that worked because, they're married. Were they not filing joint returns? I'm not really sure. Anyway, when that started raising red flags, they moved the accounts to a relative. Wonder who that relative was. Trying to stay a step ahead of the government. These people, I swear to God, I don't understand how they get $30 million from banks and then they're this stupid. From 2013 to 2016, they didn't file or pay any taxes. They didn't file tax returns. Hello? Like, that is like the biggest red flag on the planet, especially if you're, living it high on the hog. The IRS does notice those things. Anyway, that's not a paperwork error. That's outright evasion. And that's true. That's tax evasion. By the way, people, you can't just not file your tax returns and go, oops, sorry, forgot. No, it doesn't work that way. Especially if you're flaunting wealth. When federal investigators started digging, things got worse. Julie submitted a fake document to try and cover their tracks during the investigation, which landed her with an obstruction of justice charge on top of everything else. Okay, this lady thought, I can give fake documents to the bank and they'll believe it. But, maybe the FBI, they're stupid. They're not going to catch on. These people deserve to go to jail, I'm telling you. Somebody that stupid. In 2022, the whole thing came crashing down. A jury found them guilty. Todd got 12 years in prison. Julie got 7. It was clear they had committed serious financial crimes. Yeah, but then in May 2025, President Donald Trump granted them full pardons that erased their convictions just like that. They walked away free. Trump does love himself a good criminal. What's interesting is that the core of their crimes, submitting fake financial documents to banks to get loans, isn't all that different from allegations Donald Trump had faced about inflating his assets to get better financials for his business. That's true. That's what he was accused of. Trump himself has said he saw the Chrisleys' case as unfair and believed they got caught up in the same kind of aggressive legal actions he claimed were aimed at him and others in the real estate business.
And whether you believe it or not, because I was you at some point, even though this pardon has happened, I still was convicted of something that I did not do. It could be you. It could be you. It could be any of you. And somewhere in this room, someone has had a family member.
But there's a big difference worth pointing out here. The Chrisley scheme hurt a lot of people. When Todd filed for bankruptcy, many lenders, vendors, and business partners didn't get paid. They were left holding millions in losses. That's different from Trump's situation, where reports suggest he did pay his loans, even if some details are debated. So while the financial tactics might look similar, the consequences and impacts weren't the same. Even though their records are clear, the reality is this: their reputations are not. They're, in everybody's minds, they're criminals. It's going to be very difficult, maybe even impossible, for them to have any kind of traditional banking relationship again. What bank is going to want to work with them? Banks and lenders don't forget that easily. Fraud is one of the biggest red flags in the financial world, and no institution wants to take a risk on someone with that kind of history, pardon or not. And that is absolutely true. Getting a mortgage, a business loan, even opening new accounts, that's going to be a major uphill climb. But hey, maybe Trump will help him out. Maybe he'll give him some money. Same goes for employment. Outside of entertainment, who's going to hire someone with a public record of financial fraud, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice? Employers in finance, real estate, or anything requiring fiduciary trusts are likely going to pass. And right, why would you risk that? No matter what their IMBD page says. I love that line. So sure, they may have gotten a legal reset, but rebuilding trust, that's another story. Criminals, once a criminal, it's a mindset. And I truly believe once you've broken the law and gotten away with it, you will definitely do it again. And they clearly have gotten away with it here, and for many, many years. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.